welcome. I think some of you may have got from the flyer my thing of let's get ready to lobby, or how many said let's get ready to rumble? So let's proceed. We have some people here with us. Erin Walter is our minister with TXUUJM Justice Ministry, and also half-time minister with First U in Austin, and has a varied background. Craig Roshaven has more national experience with lobbying, has worked in our United Nations, our National UUA Advocacy Office, and they're both going to help us get ready to lobby more effectively. So first on the agenda is Erin, because she has to leave midway. And then Craig is going to work with us on effective lobbying. Erin, do you want to kick us off?
I'd be happy to. Thank you so much, Daniel, for organizing this time. Welcome to everyone. I'm so happy to be with you. Again, I'm Reverend Erin Walter, the Minister and Executive Director of your Texas Unitarian Universalist Justice Ministry. And it's really thrilling to see people from North Texas UU congregations, our wonderful host organization, as well as all around the state. So I wanted to invite you, while I'm telling you a little bit more about myself and about the Texas UU Justice Ministry, to introduce yourself a little bit more, especially if you're just getting here. As Daniel mentioned before, if you go up in the upper right-hand corner of your Hollywood square, more like a rectangle, and click on those three dots next to the mute, hopefully you can see that on your own rectangle. You can give us your full name, your pronouns if you use pronouns, and your congregation, because it's really helpful for everybody here to get to see who's in the room and to, I think, be inspired and be heartened by the fact that we have folks who are going to fight for UU values and for human rights and for the earth all around our state. So wave or raise your hand if you have trouble making that adjustment, but it's three dots in the upper right-hand corner. So the Texas UU Justice Ministry, which is celebrating 10 years of UU values in the public square, is your state denominational action network. And I wanted to read you these words, which some of you have heard before, but never cease to be foundational and important grounding words to me, from my predecessor and the organization's founding executive director, the Reverend Chuck Freeman. About a year ago, he preached at our congregation, First Jefferson UU in Fort Worth. You look at what happened in the last election in Arizona and Georgia. This wasn't a flash in the pan. This was the result of a decade or more of grassroots organizing. And Texas is on this path if we keep doing our work, and we will. The future will be determined by those who are focused, centered, organized, and mobilized for the values they hold dear. That will be us. The politically impossible will become the politically inevitable. And I really believe that. And I wouldn't be doing this job if I didn't. And that doesn't mean that some days aren't harder than others. The things that we face advocating at the Texas legislature can be very challenging. And so I do want to talk a little bit about that tonight as well. But the emphasis that Reverend Chuck put on grassroots organizing, taking time, taking people who are mobilized and focused, that's a big part of what we're doing with Legislative Action Day next Monday, a week from today. It's not just about that day. It's about showing up and representing our values in a very public way and deepening relationships between each other to sustain us doing this work for the long haul, and to build the relationships with the staff members, the legislators. We're going to their offices, but what's really going to count is the follow-up that we do as well. So now that you've changed your names to show where everybody's from, which is amazing. We're from all over. I love it. Like, I hope you'll take some time and look and see who's in the room. One of the most important things for you to get clear on, and I'll talk about the logistics of the day and everything, but the most important thing for you to get clear on is why you're going. Because when we go to these offices and when we show up, what they are going to need to hear and really feel impressed upon them is why you were willing to get on a bus at 5 a.m. and come from North Texas, why you were willing to come all the way from Corpus Christi. What is the story for you personally that the 22-year-old just graduated from Texas A&M, working the clerk's office of this representative's office, who just started working there in January, and her head is still spinning, trying to learn how to do this work? What is the personal story that you have to share that she will remember and that she will impress upon the person she works for, or that they will reach back to you when they need testimony? So the why of it. You don't need to memorize all the bill numbers. Again, I'm going to get into logistics, but that's not your job. Your job is to be really grounded in your UU values and the stories of why you're going. So I want to invite you to take a moment and take a breath with me and think about your personal why. There's so much. There's so many issues. You might get a couple minutes in that office. You're not going to be able to speak to everything. What's one why for you? A person, an issue that's closest to your heart, and would you put that in the chat? Just give it some thought for a minute before we dive into the logistics. Why are you coming to the Capitol? What's personal for you? And there's no wrong answers. I'll put mine in so you're not alone. The inherent worth and dignity of every person, care for our trans beloveds, going for a child who is LGBTQ, for their future, for friends, Aubrey and Montana, maybe family members, for your grandkids to get a great education and learn about the real world. Yes. Protecting abortion rights and sharing your abortion story. Amen. We need that. We need to tell our stories. We need to take our stories out of a place of silence and share them. Thank you. Thank you for putting that in the chat. From our TXUUJM intern minister, Sarah Burrell Harrop, who is just an incredible part of this team. And we are so thankful. Having attended deaths as a chaplain, Sarah knows what it's like to accompany a family in terms of losing a loved one. She wants 12 months of postpartum Medicaid coverage, which would save lives. And that is a key issue that we will be rallying around. We'll talk more about that. Audrey. Yeah, for Audrey. Gender affirming care, fighting against anti-LGBTQ bills, better health care for a friend's son who is trans. Because we can't let another important threat to democracy go to complete capitalism like healthcare has. I want to be part of saving our public schools. Yes, yes, yes. And there's so much that the legislature could do to make life better, Thank you, Frank. Not just that we're fighting to stop them from doing terrible things, but they could actually be making life better. And that's a key reason. That's a good transition That's a key reason that we chose this date, March 13th, because we were invited, your State Action Network was invited to partner with the Black Faith Coalition, with Texas Impact, with Friendship West Gender Justice Institute to rally around this 12 months of postpartum healthcare. And we feel that, you know, the house is there. We need a groundswell of support to get the Senate over that hump. But we feel that this is a real potential of life-saving, life-changing, positive good that our legislature might be able to do this time. And we want to be a part of something positive in addition to fighting these things that are negative. So thank you so much for sharing some of what's real for you. It's so important. And I ask you to keep those things in mind and to continue to think about what is your story. And if they give you 30 seconds, what can you say in 30 seconds? If they give you 5 minutes for your group, great. What can you say in 5 minutes? And I think Craig will talk more about that. A little bit more about me, as I was telling some folks early on, in a former life, before I was a minister, I was a newspaper reporter for the Austin American-Statesman. So I covered the Lege, and then I was a legal editor for the Texas House of Representatives. So I've been in the bowels of the beast. And one of the things that we want you to feel going into the Capitol, first of all, raise your hand if there's anyone who this is going to be your first Texas UU Justice Ministry Legislative Action Day. Fantastic. Awesome. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. And then put your hands down. Put your hand up if you have been there before, but of course it's been a pandemic. So it's been a little while. Awesome. Okay, welcome back. So I've been to a few, but this is my first time leading it. And it's new for a lot of us. And so one of the things that's really important is we just want you to feel empowered and comfortable as much as you can be going into the Capitol. This is your house. This is the people's house. Like many of you probably, I was part of Wendy Davis's filibuster experience. And so I draw upon that memory of it being the people's house. I'm also one of the original handmaids, and I've screamed in that rotunda for abortion rights. So don't feel like you need to sing quietly when we sing those hymns at noon, because we have screamed in that rotunda, and it is yours to do with as citizens of Texas. So one thing I want to share with you, I'm going to put it in the chat. I want to make sure that folks have seen the latest newsletter from TXUUJM, which really gives you some of the stuff that was already, if you've registered, was already there, but it's got the agenda for the day. It's got information about lunch. It's got information about youth caucus. And I don't want to take all of your time to like read aloud to you the things that you can also read for yourself. I want to make sure we have time for questions and strategizing, and for Craig to talk with you about his experience. One of the things when you look on that link that's so exciting is in just a couple of weeks, we went from 9 congregations registered to 20. So you're going to be among 20 congregations at the Capitol, which is really exciting. And it's a really good chance to meet a lot of people. But if you look at that agenda, just real quick to run down for you. 9 a.m. check-in, welcome. We'll have some speakers, myself, our partners, grounding the day and talking about the issues that we're going to be addressing. You'll be getting packets with lots of information. And I've promised Daniel, I'll also send those of you who are coming from North Texas a preview sheet so that you can see in advance and look on the bus if you want to. But really our intention, and you shouldn't need anything, you should be able to show up on the day, receive the materials, have clarity about your UU values and your story, and be able to just participate. But we know that for some people, preparation is really helpful. So I'll send you some of the documents in advance. But you'll check in, you'll get a folder with lots of information about our issue areas, about what we're working on. You'll be hearing from Sarah, who I actually want to give it when I'm done some time to speak to the appointments and things, because Sarah will be able to answer some of those questions too. But you'll be getting your information this week. Email your spiritual practice this week, because the organizing team is going to be sending you things about your legislative visits, about the group, because you're not going to be alone. You'll go on these visits in a group. So just really pay attention to the communications that you're getting. The appointments are probably going to be scattered throughout the day, depending on when your staff and team could meet with you. So that's why you'll see on the agenda a few different times when that's happening. We will have our interfaith rally for maternal health on the south steps of the Capitol in the afternoon at 2:30. Let's see what else I want to tell you. If you have burning questions, I made myself a lot of notes. So the Texas UU Justice Ministry, voted on priorities for our last legislative term. Those are racial justice, environmental justice, healthcare access, economic justice, and voting rights. All of this is going to be in your materials when you come, and are going to be in the things that I send Daniel later this week. Underneath those issues, you'll see things like under racial justice, like issues around prison conditions, like solitary confinement, community bail funds. I also think that some of the issues you mentioned around like school censorship, those will go under racial justice, because that's where a lot of the censorship is happening. So we'll have information about those issues that you can have sort of bullet points to speak to. Under environmental justice, there's several key things that our partners are gathering the latest info on for us. We're not memorizing bill numbers right now. I met with the Texas Freedom Network organizers today in passing, and I said, how's it going? And they were like, well, we're just not even bothering to memorize bill numbers, because there's so many and you don't know which one is going to be ready for committee and which one's just going to die. So by the time you come, we will have the latest of like what bills look viable right now. But what you'll do when you go into these meetings, and this is what I did, and some of you who were there, I think I saw Maria Person, some of us who did legislative days 2 weeks ago with our partner Texas Impact, you go in and you say, these are the issues that are important to me. Here's the materials I'm bringing from our justice ministry. Here's my personal story. I'm asking you, can you commit that you will vote down any further restrictions on abortion access? Or can you commit that you will vote for these 12 months of healthcare? It's not about memorizing what bill number it is, because bills will change, things will happen, House to Senate, et cetera. We'll have some example bills for you. So you might say, can you say that you will vote against House bill, whatever, and anything like it that leads to censorship in our schools or something like that. But we will make sure that you have enough to feel confident, but it's mainly they need to hear that you care about these issues. Same, moving down the list, healthcare access, and then I'm going to stop and we can do questions and things. Healthcare access, that relates to, again, those 12 months of postpartum care, supporting gender affirming care, having no additional barriers to gender affirming care or reproductive justice. If you ask me, gun control falls under healthcare access, because it's about your health, your ability to live and thrive. So we will be pulling things like that under some of our areas. Economic justice, again, relates to schools, voting rights. None of these bills that limit registering or voting on college campuses. Absolutely not. So we're gathering all the latest from our partners right now on those things. But those are some of the issues. I'm going to pause. Oh, one other thing, and then I'm gonna say questions, and if Sarah wants to jump in on anything. Again, why did you come so far? Why does it matter? How can you support them? So like leaving your contact information so they can reach back to you with questions, for stories, for testimony, stay in relationship, all of that. And we'll talk about that in person, practices around thank yous and email follow-up and all that. But last thing I really want to emphasize is that it's important. We're here as Unitarian Universalists, and that we balance out the white Christian nationalism, that we show there are progressive people of faith, that they understand that to be a person of faith in Texas does not mean what sort of the loudest and most bigoted voices are saying. So we really have a powerful as a nonpartisan organization. That's the other piece. Like, we have the capacity to, TXUUJM is nonpartisan. So to say we are here, healthcare should be a nonpartisan issue. Public school, everybody should want that, so to be able to speak from a place of faith and bipartisanship is very important. But we're going to take care of you, and it's going to be a super fun day. We're going to sing in the rotunda. We're going to rally it with our interfaith partners. We're going to have time in small groups with us as Unitarian Universalists, and we're going to have materials out the wazoo for you. So you're going to be in good shape. That's my Texas dad language talking. I hope that's anyway. That's my overview for you. I welcome your questions if there's time for that, or if Sarah wants to jump in on anything.
I will jump in and just remind people, if you have not registered, please do so immediately so we can be lining up appointments. If you're riding the bus from Dallas and you haven't gotten an email from me, you need to let me know, because I apparently don't have you on my list. So there are two things to do, and they do not happen together. You have to do each of them, please. With that, Sarah, did you have anything to add here?
I'm going to give Craig the space to give his prepared part, and then if there's time at the end, I can talk a little bit about the groups and the communications that we're going to send out about the groups and the appointments.
Okay.
Can I
Craig,
throw in
you
a
want to
couple
talk
more?
about getting...
Oh, sorry. I have a couple more logistics real quick before I forget. Look for your congregational banners if you have them, and feel free to please bring, your banner to represent your congregation. And also, I know Daniel has mentioned shirts, come in your Side with Love Gold, whether it's a shirt that you buy online from us or you already have. I think that was the other sort of logistical piece. And I'm going to put, you don't need to bring an admission ticket. We'll check you off the list. Thanks for that question, Pam. I'm going to put the link to register in the chat. All right. Thank you. And I'll stick around. I want to hear Craig's part too.
Sarah, how much time do you need to go over your part?
Like 5 minutes.
Okay.
So Craig, you're going to talk about getting half a loaf better than none. Go for it.
I just want to introduce myself. I'm Reverend Craig Roshaven. I've been a UU minister for 40 years. I just did the math. That's amazing. I served what was then known as First Jefferson Unitarian Universalist Church in Fort Worth from 1991 to 2009. And they changed their name recently to All People's Church. And when I was there, I was a leader in Allied Communities of Tarrant, faith-based community organization that advocated for social justice on the city, county, and state levels. And Daniel said most of my experience is federal. I have a lot of experience in federal, but I've got a lot of experience in city, state, county as well. One of the things I was reflecting on the other day is I advocated with Kay Granger when she was mayor of Fort Worth to expand the civil rights ordinance of the city to include gays and lesbians as a protected class. And then I've met with her face to face in her role as one of the chief appropriators in Washington, D.C. So that's kind of an interesting span of contact. From 2011 to 2013, I was the Witness Ministries Director for the UUA. I worked and lived in Washington, D.C. and oversaw advocacy for the UUA, including the Standing on the Side of Love campaign, as it was called then. And that position was eliminated in 2013 due to a lack of funding. I retired in 2015, and because of an article I read in the New York Times, I immediately started a results chapter, because the kind of advocacy I really believe in is the kind of advocacy you're going to be doing in Austin next week. And that is having a meeting with the people who actually make the decisions. And it's very important to talk directly to your elected representatives. So I was trained by Results too as an advocacy trainer, and I'd be happy to do advocacy training to your congregation or your organization. That's one of the things that I love to do. One of the things I want to share with you is what we start off our advocacy training with, and I'm going to put this in the chat, the link to it. It comes from the Congressional Management Foundation. And let me put this in. And this is an organization that works on, let me pull this up. Well, that's one thing. Let's think. I think I got a PDF I need to pull up. Excuse me. And they work with Congress. And one of the things they do with Congress is help congressional offices, newly elected members of Congress, staff their office, help them figure out what's what. But the other part of what they do is to help citizens like us engage successfully with Congress. So, and the thing that I think is most exciting is the thing that, can you see that where it says findings on the right side of your screen?
Yes.
It says direct constituent interactions have more influence on lawmakers' decisions than other advocacy strategies. So it goes on to say that people think that constituents' voices don't make a difference, that you have to have big money to make a difference, but that is not the case. And this is a survey they've done twice now, and it's been consistent each time that congressional staff are surveyed and say, hey, what makes a difference to your boss? What's going to convince your boss? If he or she doesn't have a fixed position on an issue, what's going to influence them? And number one, you can see is in-person visits from constituents, which is what you're going to be doing. And the other one is contact from constituents reps. And that's where Erin might go and say, I represent all these UU congregations in Texas. And that's an example of a constituent representative. And then you got individualized email messages. Then at the very bottom is visit from a lobbyist, form email messages. So I like to share this because it shows that what you're going to do will and can make a difference. So don't believe that it doesn't. Take heart. This makes a difference. Any questions about this? Just unmute yourself and speak up if you have any questions at this point.
Actually, I'm having a hard time reading it. Is there any way you can email this to us?
I sure can. I've sent this to Daniel, and I'll send a copy to Erin as well as they can distribute it.
I have a question.
Yes.
This runs against all the political science research, the latest in that, which I'm familiar with in terms of the influence, of constituents compared to donors.
Well, this is the opinion of the people who work for the members of Congress, the representatives and senators, and they asked them, what do you think?
They were talking to somebody. It was a survey, and they would say, "What influences, your representative?" There's a little self-selection bias there. I wouldn't think that those who would, in fact, that would be influenced by the donors most would admit that if we were talking to congressional staff. I mean, what we do is really important. I'm just simply saying a little caution to this.
Right. Well, in my experience, what money gets you is access. So the challenge I had when I was working on Capitol Hill and was calling on senators and members of Congress with other faith leaders was it was hard to get a face-to-face meeting with a senator. Now, if I were a major donor, I think I'd get a face-to-face meeting. But we're talking about what makes influence. And one of the things that's important is lawmakers consider so many different things. And so a lot of times, if you show up and talk to them about something, it might not have been on their agenda. It may not be something they've got a firm position on, and you can really make a difference. I know that happens with the anti-poverty work I do with Results. It's rarely a big political issue. And so our showing up and saying, I'm a constituent and this is important to me, I'd like you to support this policy, makes a difference.
I can tell you that the whole entire organization of Indivisible was started on this exact principle. There were two staffers in Lloyd Doggett's office who basically during Obama's first year, they were stymied by individual constituents coming to the office constantly and just demanding their attention, the Tea Party people constantly demanding the representatives' attention. And if the organization Indivisible was started because they wanted to see progressive folks doing the same kind of tactic, that in-person visit, demanding the attention of your elected representatives to represent your point of view.
Thank you. Something else I want to share with you is Margaret Smith is the leader of our Dallas Results Group. It's a very healthy, very diverse group. And when Pete Sessions was a representative in Dallas, a member of Congress, a representative, they couldn't get the time of day. He would meet with them, but he would never do what they asked. But they continued meeting with him year after year after year. And at some point, all that relationship building changed off. And pretty soon, everything we asked him to do, he did. And then his final meeting, he had formed such a relationship that he asked if he could give Margaret a hug. Something he wouldn't give us a time of day. And over the course of 8 years, he changed. So it's important to see yourself as in this for the long haul and to think of this as relationship building as well as just demands. So let me go on to my next point I want to talk about. And that is building a relationship, doing research. One of the things that we do before we meet with someone, we're meeting with a member of Representative Burgess's staff this Friday, the Senior Health Policy Advisor. And before we go to that meeting, we try to do research on, we want to see what committees Burgess is on in this session of Congress. We want to look at his bio and see if it's updated. We want to see if we can find any common ground. We want to see if there's anything we can thank him for to start the meeting off with. And then always, one of the people on the call tonight is a member of my results group, Abita Dwyer, and she wanted to see what we were up to, so I invited her to join us. But she's very good at engaging that aide and saying, how long have you been here? What brought you to this position? What's it like? And just kind of making it relational. And so I want to share a screen again here and bring up. Let's see.
While you're doing that, Craig, Jan Flesher has her hand up.
Okay, well, just a minute. Let me find what I'm looking for here, please. Okay, I'm going to put this in the chat. And this is a form that will tell you who represents you. I'll put that in the chat in a minute. And so, somebody want to give me an address?
222 Phoenix Drive.
In what city?
Trophy Club.
Trophy Club? Zip?
76262.
So we go find. And that shows that Congressman Michael Burgess is at the US Congress, but the Texas House Representative is Jim Bumgardner. And you can read his biography. And so it's useful to read that stuff. They met while attending Austin College. Well, maybe you know someone who goes to Austin College. Look for something that you might do. He says his a community leader is equipped to serve as a voice for all Texans in the House. Well, we're pleased to hear that, Representative Bumgardner. We'd like you to include all Texans, and these are some of the Texans we'd like you to include. that we feel aren't being included, and their voices aren't being heard in the House. And you can go and look then at any media, any newsletters, press conferences, press releases. So he just got appointed to 2 standing committees for the 88th legislative session. And so the standing committee assignments are Defense and Veteran Affairs and International Relations and Economic Development. So you might just say congratulations on being on this committee if you get to meet with him directly. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is, you know, you're going to go down to DC and you're going to go to the offices, but the chances are you're probably not going to get a face-to-face. But it's much easier to get a face-to-face in district, and it's a lot less trouble for you to travel to the local district office than it is for you to travel down to Austin. So he's got a members page here. We can click on it, and you can see there that usually there's a place where you can send a message to your member of Congress. It lists the district address. Here's the email thing right here, and where my cursor is right now in the upper left. And then, but you can always call the office. Doesn't have what the district address is, but he has a district office. For some reason it's not here. You can call Austin and find out what the district office is and arrange for a face-to-face there. When I was in Florida, I met frequently with members of this Florida state legislature as part of an interfaith community organization. And we rarely had to travel to the Capitol. And then when we did, we weren't able to meet directly, get face-to-face meetings with the representative, but we repeatedly met with representatives in the local office. So I'd like you to consider this as an ongoing thing. These issues we're asking for are very important. And I think it's important to not just do it once a year, but to continue to do it, to develop a relationship. I went into a meeting with U.S. Global Leadership Coalition a couple of years ago, not results as part of a member of that coalition, but no, the only results member was there. We went into Kay Granger's office and met with one of her legislative director, and I walked in the office and he went, "Hi, Craig." That kind of relationship is important.
Mm-hmm.
And we're sending someone to Washington, D.C. this week to meet with Representative Kay Granger's legislative director. We've met with him a number of times over Zoom. She's going to meet with him face to face, and he's going to know who she is. There's a relationship between them, and that's very helpful. So those are the 2 things I want to emphasize. One is what you do really can make a difference. And 2, think of this, do research on your who represents you in the House and in the Senate, and find out who they are. And most importantly, continue to contact them, email them, call the office, ask for a face-to-face meeting with that House member. And you'd be surprised at how accessible they are. And even better, if you could get a few of your friends to go with you. The constituents are the ones who ask for the meetings, but we always bring people who aren't constituents to these meetings. But the more constituents you have, the better. So anyway, that's my 15 minutes. I'll stop and ask for any questions. Yes, Glenna.
Yeah, are we supposed to bring our own name tags from the church, or will there be name tags available? I think it's really important for the aides to know who we are. And either we could bring them from our own congregation, but if you're going to have them at the Capitol, I guess I just want to know what's the expectation.
We will have name tags for you.
Wonderful.
If you have your name tag, feel free to bring it, but we will be making name tags.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Jenna.
So for my church, I'm one of the only people that lives where I live. So I know that like my representatives, like I'll be the only person there. So will I be talking to mine, or will I be in a group talking to other people's representatives?
You want to answer that, Erin?
I should answer that. You assume, and I can look you up too, but here's the way we're doing it is when somebody's a solo, we're grouping that person with at least one other person. For y'all's area, Central Texas, there's a lot of big groups, so we can group you with a big group. And so we're setting 2 appointments, for each of y'all's legislators. So let's say, you're Carrie Isaac. I don't know that you are, but let's say that. And we will put Carrie Isaac with Vicki Goodwin. And then that whole group would go to Carrie Isaac and go to Vicki Goodwin. And there's flexibility in that because the Vicki Goodwin is, maybe 5 people. Well, not all 5 people have to go to both of those. Or if you have a mobility issue, you can only go to one, your own, and it's a bigger group, then you don't need to go to the second one. But we're putting together groups of lobby buddies in that way so that nobody is alone. And we'll be sending out y'all's groups. They've already been formed. The representatives we've started the process of contacting y'all's representatives. And so starting on tomorrow, we'll be sending out who is your group, so that you can start researching, frankly, both of the legislators if you're going to 2, because you may have a connection based on the committee. Most of the action that's going on right now is in committees. And so it's very, very important to think about how does your personal story connect to an issue that is in front of a committee. So for example, we have a constituent of Hubert Vose. Hubert Vose is on the elections committee. So, bringing a voting story to that appointment may be more effective than bringing a healthcare story, because Hubert Vose is not on any health committees, if that makes sense.
Frank?
If my church is in a significantly different district than where I live, did you use addresses from the church or from our individual residences?
We used whatever address you signed up with.
Oh, great.
So if you signed up with your residence address, that's the address that we used.
Thank you.
For religious professionals, there was at least one religious professional that gave me both. And so then we can adjust, if a group is too small and they're in a group that's bigger, we can adjust to move that religious professional to round out that group. And we can also make game time decisions of rounding out groups on the very day. That said, a couple of the groups that we're working on rounding out involve some key legislators. Is it okay if I go ahead and mention that, Erin? Okay, so Representative Todd Hunt, and I see you, Karen, and it is good to see you because I think I knew you from PFLAG forever ago. Representative Todd Hunter is a moderate Republican. He's a very well-respected and powerful person who can do work behind the scenes. And so we can get into that office because Christy is going to travel from Corpus Christi. So yay, Christy. So we can get in there. And we want to bring him some stories about trans folks and trans youth to give him compelling reasons to kill that stuff behind the scenes.
My son is transgendered actually, and okay. He's one of these very kind of shy, retiring type of people. He had absolutely no interest in transitioning while he was still in high school in Flower Bluff and a part of Corpus Christi, but he completely transitioned once he got to college, but we couldn't afford top surgery for him. And this is critical. He's going to graduate this May with a bachelor's degree in physics and is hoping to come back home and work at the refineries. But he is afraid because he does not pass very well. He's got a large chest. And he is afraid that he needs to get top surgery before he goes to apply for jobs at the refinery because it's an extremely male-centric, masculine-centric, homophobic, transphobic atmosphere at the refineries. And so this is incredibly important. Thank God he's over 18 and I don't have to worry about, but I just can't imagine if we had been going through this when he was 14 or 16 and being told by medical professionals that this is the best way for that person, for my son to receive care, and then being told, well, I'm sorry, it's against the law in the state of Texas.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's a great story to bring. Well, we have at least one other person we want to add to this delegation, because we have added Ali Tharp, who is involved with environmental issues. And this representative is interested in environmental issues. So let it be known if you're interested in visiting with Todd Hunter. Thank you, Christy. I'm really glad to hear that we have this story already in the delegation. The other delegation that we're sort of interested in really rounding out is the delegation that includes Tom Oliverson, who is a medical doctor, and a lot of the bad is coming out of his office. And so we're looking to round out that delegation as well. And I see hands, but I don't know who's moderating right now because I saw Karen's and Reverend Erin. So
Erin, go ahead.
That was, I think that hand was me, so I'll chime in.
Yeah.
So we're talking about strategies here. One is that TXUUJM isn't sending you in if you're alone. There will be partnering you up with someone to go into meetings with. Also, if we're trying to reach legislators who aren't necessarily friendly, but if we can reach them, or if they are somewhat neutral, if they can work with us to reach someone else. Or like my representative is longtime Democrat, and they're on the issues, but not necessarily proactive. Well, she could do more by reaching other people for us. She could be sponsoring legislation for us and could be more proactive. She's been in the Lege for 30 years. She knows people. She could sway people for us. So in some sense, let's get those people, let's get them to be lobbyists for us, with their colleagues, with their peers.
Karen?
Erin and Karen.
Oh, yeah. I was told that I can make a sign of my own and bring it. Is that yes? Okay. I was told as long as it's in good taste, and which I would certainly do. So yes.
Actually,
okay, good.
And Erin may have an answer to me on that. Remember 4 years ago, I was told that we could not carry sticks into the Lege. So
Okay.
Unless that's changed, be careful about trying to put it on a stick.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's still true. So I wanted to emphasize a couple quick things from what Sarah had said, or just underscore. Number one, what we hear from Christy's willingness to come from Corpus, I think is also true kind of broadly, which is that you if anyone is wondering if it matters if they come, or if a friend is like, oh, I'm just one more person, you just don't know when you are that one more person who will have a story that is needed to be told, that one more person who puts us in a room that we need to be in. Every single person who comes really matters. And another thing I wanted to say on that matter, though, is that just to practice self-care on that day, we will have chaplains. We will have a chaplain for our BIPOC and people of the global majority. We will have a chaplain for LGBTQIA+ folks. We will have a couple of general chaplains. When I was with Texas Impact lobbying, it was a lot for all of us, but especially the two trans members of our group, to have a person talk right back to us and say, that they disagreed about gender affirming care. And you may, because of any number of identities or experiences, find yourself in a conversation with someone who has some power and who is disagreeing with your lived experience. And so I just want to be real about that if you haven't done that before, and let you know that we will have chaplaincy support for you, and also spaces where you can take care of yourself and decompress at times. It's your day. You're the boss of you. If you need to go for a walk and get some fresh air, you can do that. I think those were a couple of the sort of key things I wanted to emphasize from what I've recently heard, and I'll turn it back over to y'all.
I'm going to leave in just a minute. I want to close with a story. I told you about how I was meeting with Kate Granger to advocate for expanding the civil rights ordinance of Fort Worth. I was part of a coalition that met for years doing that. And finally, a member of Fort Worth City Council, Chuck Silcox, who had been an obstacle to this, said, don't send me any more liberal ministers telling me what I should do. Send me someone who's been denied employment or housing because of their sexual orientation. Well, we can do that. And he was good to his word. He heard those stories, and he ended up sponsoring expanding the civil rights ordinance. So this can work. Stories are so important, personal experiences, people who are directly affected. So anyway, thank you all. God bless. Take care. Have fun. Be successful.
Okay.
Thank you, Reverend Craig.
Any quick things? Let's see. Two things I want to wrap up. One, if you would type in the chat one word about what your hope is, what this hour has brought you, given you. I'll be making a word cloud. So what have you gotten from this hour? And just put that in the chat. And while you do that, I'm going to share a reading that I like. That Eugenia Gamble is, I believe, a Presbyterian minister. May God bless you with discomfort, with easy answers, half truths, and superficial answers, so you will live deeply and from the heart. May God bless you with anger at injustice, oppression, and the exploitation of people, so that you will work for justice, freedom, and peace. May God bless you with tears to shed for those who mourn, so that you will reach out your hand to them and turn their mourning into joy. And may God bless you with just enough foolishness to believe that you can make a difference in the world, so that you will do those things that others say cannot be done. Any other comments as we wrap up?
Thank you all so much. I want to thank you all so much for being here. I want to thank Daniel for putting this together, and Sarah for her contributions, and of course, Reverend Craig, who left, all of you for your questions. But I wanted to also ask you to please, if you are not on the TXUUJM Justice Ministry email list, to please do that, because this day is so important, and it's not everything. We're doing all kinds of other stuff. Our weekly action hours, the follow-up actions, the work with partners, because the Lege will keep going until the end of May. So it won't just be this day. We are building power, building solidarity, building relationships. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So please,
Erin,
please sign up.
One thing also, what people can do who are not attending is they can make calls to the office supporting the people who are attending. Hi, we have several people from my congregation in your office today. I'm calling to extend my support of them on these issues. That can also be helpful.